Oh, see, now this chair doesn't have armrests. The other one did.
Yeah,
What is that chair? Hold that chair up.
Applesauce.
Well, this is broken too. But it's
Damn,
got
this means
armrests.
on the
Where is it
herd
broken?
boy chair.
Right here on the seat, considering I can take it off the chair.
Wait, hold on. What?
So that's where it's broken.
We need
But
a
the other
Odd Sports
one is
Topics
also-
GoFundMe page for Matt to get a new chair.
Sir, I need a throne. I need a throne, people.
Sponsor us. If we're recording right now, we're not.
We are.
Sponsor us so we can
We
get Matt
actually
a
are
chair.
recording. We are
Get Matt a
recording.
throne 2020.
Sponsor us. Hey, sponsors, give us money so we can buy Matt a chair. That's the
Lazy
first thing
boy?
we'll do
Hey,
with this
lazy
sponsor.
Let's
boy,
get
if
Lazy
you're
boy.
watching, I use a lazy boy.
I would love a lazy boy recliner. That'd be ideal.
I could pull my actual recliner over here, but that's just a lot of work.
You should
I had
do
this.
that.
So I had this really nice recliner at school that I was in love with, but it was like huge. And then when I moved out for senior year, it was kind of trash because I had it for like 4 years and I was a college kid and didn't take care of it. So my senior year, I just left it there because like we moved out so
Stop.
fast due to COVID. Well, like they were just like, well, we thought we were coming back. Like we didn't know we were getting kicked off for
You
good.
just
so
left
like
a
when I left for
recliner.
spring break-
Just left it.
Yeah,
You know,
it was pretty beat
Matt,
down.
people like
It was
Matt
pretty
don't
beat
even
down.
have
I
a
swear,
chair to sit
the
on.
chair,
Pretty beat down.
my right ass cheek is falling through this chair right now, and you
It
left
was
the
pretty
recliner
beat down.
out.
It was pretty beat down. I got it off Facebook Marketplace for like $50 going into like my sophomore year, and I had it the rest of the year, and it was pretty trash. Like I trashed it by the end of it. I'm not gonna lie. Like it was fake leather, and like all the stuff was like falling off, like shedded like crazy. I just left it there. But I miss that recliner every day. It was so comfy. I slept in it some nights. It was honestly, it was bomb. Fully
Yeah.
reclined back.
I mean, look at this. I can't win. My chair's broken. I'm gonna fall through this chair at some point. I hope while we record, I fall through this chair.
That would be great. That'd be great.
It'd be great. It would be ideal. Funny. Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 9 of the Odd Sports Topics podcast. I am Michael Rachel, as always, joined by PJ Ellis and Matt Costa, who is going through some chair problems at the moment. So don't look his way, just look our way. We have a special guest on today's episode. It's the guy that gave us our first publicity, I would say. Yeah, publicity on the air on his show From the Studio on MC22. Corey Riggs. He does play-by-play. He does studio work for sports. He's done Missouri State. He does high school in Missouri. He does a bunch of stuff that PJ is going to get into. PJ, just go ahead and get into all about Corey.
Yeah. First off, Corey is a friend of the show, friend of the podcast, friend of the blog. Been supportive all the way through day one. Like I said, he gave us our first opportunity. So
we dig the rig, right? We dig the rig.
No, I'm not saying that. But we're a fan of Corey, and he's a friend of the show for sure. But yeah, Corey, illustrious career in sports broadcasting so far. ESPNU, ESPN3, Missouri State basketball, football, MediaCom production. Like he's everywhere in sports broadcasting you can imagine. Misha, so Missouri State High School athletics championships. Dirt racing or not dirt racing, auto racing, just literally everything in sports broadcasting you can think of. Name a sport, and Corey has probably done the play-by-play or the color commentary for
curling.
Probably. I don't know. Like we'd have to figure it out. If not yet, give it some more years, and I'm sure Corey will cover it. He's everywhere in sports broadcasting. Great guy, great career, and we have a great conversation with him coming up just about everything sports broadcasting. His career, some of his favorites, just, it's a good conversation. You're going to be excited for it.
Matt, what was your favorite part of the interview with Corey?
I really loved hearing about all the great athletes that Corey's had the privilege of covering over the past couple of years. He touched a little bit about Dorial Green Beckham, one of the best football recruits in Missouri State history. He got to watch him play football and basketball. He talked a little bit about Jason Tatum. I got to see Tatum with my own eyes when he went to Chaminade here in St. Louis. He was spectacular, absolutely amazing, the things he could do on a basketball court at the high school level. So I really enjoyed listening to all the great athletes he's covered and all the amazing sporting events that he's been a part of.
PJ, anything that stuck out to you?
Sticking with the DGB, he shares a funny story and he'll get into it, but I'll just say 2 words: an indoor powder toss. We see it sometimes at high school football games, powder toss outside, but he shares an interesting story about how it happened in an indoor basketball game one time. So you'll want to hear that story about how he shares.
All right, so guys, he talked a little bit about the Tom Brenneman issue and Troy Aikman that we've recently heard about, like hot mics and stuff like that. We also talk about the boom goes the dynamite kid, right? But one that we did not bring up was the gone but not forgotten, our sweet, sweet Lucy. So we're going to go ahead right now and play that clip for everybody. So there we are.
Well, and then there's one more. There's one more gone but not forgotten, and that's our sweet Daisy, or our sweet Lucy. At the age of 12, she was run over in our driveway.
Oh, like that? Was she run over like?
All right, and now we're going to give the Odd Sports Topics reenactment of the video. We're going to mute the video, and we ourselves are going to do the play-by-play. So who would like to do this? I mean, I'll be in for it. So now PJ and I are going to recreate that beautiful play-by-play announcer's call. So here we go. Here goes nothing. And our last gone but not forgotten, our sweet, sweet Lucy. I mean, our sweet, sweet Matt, gone at the age of 12. She was run over in our driveway.
Oh, like this? Was she run over like that?
All right, not bad, not bad. A little late, PJ, but that's okay.
I think it was in time. I think I had it.
Yeah, but anyways, Corey, in all seriousness, he luckily has not had a call like that before, like that. He has not had a call like that, and he is class. He's great at what he does, and the interview was really interesting, I thought. So here you guys go. Episode 9. Here is our guest, play-by-play announcer for Missouri State basketball, literally everything, Corey Riggs. Before we start the interview, the next time you're in Springfield, Illinois, make sure you check out Top Cat's Chill and Grill, located at 3211 Sangamon Avenue in Springfield, Illinois. Top Cats is a great restaurant to take your family to, your friends, or even just yourself. They have a lot of space inside to eat, as well as an outdoor beer garden with shuffleboard for you and your friends or family to play. If you are feeling lucky, sit down and play some slots while you wait for your delicious food to be made. They are home of the horseshoe, which is a really cool dish that includes a chicken, fries, bread, and cheese sauce all in one. It's a very cool dish that is only known in Springfield. It's really, really good. Top Cats is located less than a mile from the freeway. So if you're making a trip from St. Louis to Chicago, St. Louis to Milwaukee, Milwaukee to St. Louis, or just stopping through Springfield, make sure you hop off and go check out Top Cats Chill and Grill on Sangamon Avenue. If I have not convinced you yet, how about some deals? Use promo word Team Name Tuesdays to get a deal on one of these three things: $5 mixed drink, $12 buckets, or $5 queso. Again, use promo word Team Name Tuesdays when at Top Cats Chill and Grill on Sangamon Avenue in Springfield, Illinois, to either get a $5 mixed drink, $12 bucket, or it's $5 queso. The promo word will change when our next episode releases. Really good spot there in Springfield. Make sure you guys go check it out. We now welcome on to the Odd Sports Topics podcast, the person that first put us on the air. So we thought, let's get him on our air. He is the senior production manager at Mediacom Communications, and he does play-by-play announcing for a bunch of different networks, including the ESPN networks. He is Corey Riggs. Corey, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. It is good to see you again. And in COVID time, it's been like years since we had you on our show.
It definitely feels like it. We're going to go ahead and start right back into it. Obviously, we're at Odd Sports Topics, so we cover the odd things in sports. So one of our favorite questions to ask all of our guests, you've had an illustrious career in sports. What's an odd thing you've countered in your sports career?
Well, I mean, first things first, guys, there isn't anything that isn't odd about a career in sports. I mean, it's all weird. It's all odd, from the travel schedule to the people you meet to all the different things that you do. But one that sticks out as here in Springfield, we extensively cover high school sports. It's kind of the cornerstone of what we do on MC22. And we had an incredible athlete that you guys, I'm sure, would remember, named Doriel Green Beckham. He was a multi-sport athlete at Hillcrest High School here in Springfield. Not only was he a phenomenal football player, which he showed at the University of Missouri, but he was also an incredible basketball player. And kind of at the peak of LeBron's popularity and the move toward a championship in Cleveland, everybody remembers the poof, he'd take the baby powder and make the cloud. Well, they decided that would be a good idea at Hillcrest, and we were there to cover the game live on television. And so Doriel came over to the student section, baby powder in hand, poof, right? What we didn't know is the student section, all of them, also had baby powder in their hands. And when they threw their hands in the air, it created a white cloud that covered the floor in baby powder. We had to wait 20 minutes while the custodians cleaned the floor on live television before the game could begin. And that occurred during the introduction of the starting warmups. That was a little odd.
Yeah, that's definitely odd. It's almost like you had to cover the fog bowl before they were going to clean it up.
It was one of those things as a broadcaster when you're preparing, you have all your notes that you want to get to, and then you have some stuff, or at least I do, and a lot of the folks that I work with do, you call blowout material that you get to if maybe the game gets out of hand. We had to go through all of it just to fill the 20 minutes while they clean the floor.
Oh, that's funny, Corey. So what made you want to pursue a career in sports broadcasting in the first place?
Oh, that is that is a great question, because honestly, guys, it was never the plan. When I was in middle school, high school, I never had any thoughts about being in broadcasting. I did a little bit of everything. I played football my freshman year, which is a requirement when you attend Webb City High School. I was a competitive swimmer. I was in speech and debate, drama, band, jazz band, you name it. Never really thought about broadcasting anything. There definitely weren't the opportunities when I was in high school that there are now with streaming and so many things that the kids can do at the different schools now, which is amazing. But when I went to college at then SMS, now Missouri State, I went there for 2 years and I went to nursing school because that's what I was going to do. I was going to nursing school. I was going to graduate from nursing school, go to anesthesia school and be a CRNA and make good money. And it was going to be great. And then I realized in nursing school that I didn't get along with sick people really well. They didn't want to do the therapies that I was there to help them with, and it was very frustrating. And truth be told, I just wasn't mature enough for that career path at that point in my life. And so I got out of nursing school and I didn't know what I was going to do. And one of my best friends from college, one of my fraternity brothers, a guy named Nathan Cox, looked at me and goes, "Well, I know what you need to do. It's what you should have been doing the whole time." He's like, you should be in TV. You should be in media, covering sports. You know, that's what you're good at. That's your wheelhouse. And all that's based on the fact that there used to be a tour that went around college campuses called the CBS College Comedy Tour. And they would record you and give you a VHS cassette. That shows my age. Of what you did, and you could pick from like great moments in sports history. So I picked the Christian Laettner turnaround jumper for Duke.
There's the pass to Laettner. Puts it up. Yes!
And I redid the intro and the play-by-play of that play and had it on a VHS tape. And that was kind of my first foray into sports just as a goof, but I had a good friend that told me that's what I should have been doing the whole time. And I took him up on that, went back to college at Missouri State and graduated with my degree in mass media and broadcast journalism. From there, got an internship at MediaCom in about 1998. And I've been here ever since.
You mentioned that your fraternity brother told you that you belonged in the media. How many times did some of your other fraternity brothers say, "Hey, you've got this perfect voice for play-by-play"? And how much did that voice actually play a factor into you doing play-by-play?
You know, it would come up every now and again, but honestly, the running joke was that they thought I should probably be calling pro wrestling, that my delivery was a little over the top, and maybe I should be selling suplexes and body slams and not 3-pointers or touchdowns. But there was always somebody that was kind of in my ear. And you know, I had a great support system even after I got out of nursing school. You know, my mom and dad were all about whatever path you want to be on. That's the path that you need to follow. And my wife and my son are immensely supportive. And you have to have that in this business, because nights and weekends are a thing of the past. You work nights and weekends. You get a chance to call state championship football like a day or two after Thanksgiving. Well, you have Thanksgiving dinner and then you go to where the ball games are. So to be in this industry for any amount of time, like the 22 years and change I've been in it, you've got to have a lot of help and a great support system. And I've always had that.
I want you to talk a little bit about the difference between radio play-by-play and TV play-by-play, because obviously when we're watching TV, we can kind of make assumptions for ourselves. We don't need everything explained to us, whereas radio we can't see. And I think Kevin Harlan does a really good job of that. But Corey, can you just explain some of the differences that you personally go through when doing TV versus radio?
Well, I think it kind of depends for announcers on where you start. I think more people get their start in radio than TV. I got my start in TV and then eventually got opportunities in radio. So as someone that started in TV, you know that the pictures are there. You know that the fans can see what you're talking about. So first things first, in television, there's no room for error. You can't get a player's name wrong when they can see the player's name on the back of the jersey. Radio gives you a little bit more room for error, unless they're sitting there with a live stat monitor fact checking you. But TV is really about understanding the relationship between what the viewer sees and then what you can add to it. I've always felt like TV, because of the visual element, it gives you the opportunity to tell more stories, more backstories on the players and where they came from. And definitely to make a deeper dive into stats and statistical analysis. Meanwhile, on radio, I feel like radio is much harder. Maybe it's because I came to it in my career later, but to break from TV where you've got the crutch of the cameras and what's on the screen, to know that you are the eyes, you are the ears of the person that's taking in that content. And all of a sudden, the numbers might not be as important as, say, how a guy gets into the batter's box in a college baseball game and what his sort of bizarre pre-pitch ritual is like. Because if it looks odd to you, you need to describe it. You need to tell that to the people at home so they know why it's taking so long for the pitcher to deliver a pitch, because of what the player is doing in the batter's box. You know, the elements of weather and how that can affect the game, I think requires more detail and discussion in radio. Radio is just a completely different creature in the fact too that I think it gives you such an opportunity. There's so much more freedom in radio because you can let the poet out in you in radio. That is what made Vin Scully so incredible for 50 plus years is the poetry that he brought to the games that he did, and the vivid way he would describe things. You got to be heavy on adjectives when you're on the radio, and you don't necessarily have to be quite as verbose to a TV audience.
So Corey, earlier you stated you've been in the sports industry for 22 years now, or around there. That's a long time, obviously. What is your favorite memory from that 22-year career?
What is my favorite memory from the last 20 some odd years? I think for me, I hope that years from now, when people talk about what I do, if someone decides to talk about what I do, they start with loyalty. If nothing else in this business, it is hard to find. I have been extremely loyal to Mediacom because they have been so good to me. And I go back year after year after year to certain events to cover certain leagues because they have shown a loyalty to me, and I reciprocate that. Because of that, I would say probably my favorite memories to this point are the fact that the Missouri State High School Activities Association has given me the opportunity, thanks to Jim Powers, to bringing me in to start broadcasting some of the MISHA state championships, getting to cover Webb City football after growing up in that town for the first 18 years of my life, and not being able to contribute on the football field because that was not going to happen. I practiced a lot my freshman year. I didn't play. Being able to be a part of covering some of these now 15 state championship teams since 1989. And when I get the opportunity to go home, to see friends, to see family that might not normally catch my work or catch a broadcast that I'm doing, but they were all sitting around the living room streaming a game or watching a game on Fox Sports Midwest, that I was a part of at the Dome in St. Louis or at Faurot Field in Columbia, covering those teams. Those are some of my favorites because there's no negatives to state championship football or state championship basketball. It is something to be celebrated and glorified, and it's just so much fun. And the only thing that's a downside is there's got to be one winner and there's got to be one team that doesn't win. But getting to cover your alma mater, whether it's Webb City or Missouri State, is really something that I cherish the opportunity to do.
Corey, we know you've been a part of over 2,500 sporting events as either broadcaster or member of the production team. We just want to know a little bit about how you prepare to commentate for these sporting events.
Oh, well, it is different for each sport. That is for sure. I told you guys before we started the interview, I'm getting ready I'm going to have a college soccer game tonight, a high school football game tomorrow night, an NAIA football game on Saturday, and a high school soccer game on Monday. And each one of them comes with a different level of work because of the different levels they are. I'm going to cover Division I women's soccer tonight. Sports information people are amazing. They are the unsung heroes of athletic departments, and they're the best friends of broadcasters because game notes and media guides, things that these people work days, weeks, months preparing, make our life so much easier. They take all the information we need, they put it into one place. So because of that, you can really just focus on the numbers, on the players, on the pronunciations, on the histories, because you don't have to do a deep dive research-wise. Now, transition to the fact that I'll be talking high school football and high school soccer on Friday and Monday. That's a completely different beast. I can't get quite as deep into that because I have to rely on my ability to search the internet, my ability to get a hold of coaches, get them to return a phone call, and talk to them, get the pronunciations of the players' names from the coaches, because high schools aren't putting out media guides. High schools don't offer game notes. So there's a lot more work to find, oftentimes maybe half as much information at the high school level than the collegiate or heaven forbid, a professional level. So it all depends on what you're covering. I am a big proponent of having everything in front of me. Let me see. I don't know if I have one of these here. This is probably bad podcasting etiquette, but I am a big manila folder guy. I will take notes, cut them up, and then tape them onto one of these and keep that in front of me. I like to take certain things from the notes or certain things that I print off, copy them, highlight them, jot a note above them that says, series history or this, that, and the other, and put it all out in front of me. I've got a bunch of information on one side of it, flip it over, another set of information on the other side. And that's what I go to work with, and try to not be rustling through stacks of papers. I try to get everything onto one item, whether it's that or I'm trying to get more technologically advanced. My broadcast partner at Lucas Oil Speedway, Shane Freeby, has now got me using a Surface Pro and a spreadsheet when we do races. So that's probably the most high-tech preparation I do, is when we're going dirt track racing.
So obviously some sports do take longer than others to prepare for. Which sports for you come more naturally, easier to prepare for, and which sports seem to take the longest?
Well, I would say that, I mentioned the dirt track racing. That is really unique because we can only prepare for that at the track. There's no website that has every driver's information on it. And you've got to collect there's certain information that I think the fans expect. They want to know what chassis is under the car. They want to know what sort of motor, engine, power plant runs the car, how long a driver has been driving, how long he's been driving in a specific series, the top 4 or 5 sponsors for a driver. And you can only get that in person. So racing is unique because Shane and I will go up and get there about 4 hours before the race starts and just spend the time going back and forth, crisscrossing the pits, trying to get that information from the drivers. And it changes all the time. A guy that may be running a rocket chassis may switch to a Longhorn chassis the next week. So you just never know after a crash or a sponsorship change. My favorite probably to prepare for is football. There'll always probably be a special place in my heart for football. I think that's probably because of where I grew up. I just calling a football game is unique to me. I think for me professionally, I have maybe a deeper understanding of that game than I do any other. I feel like I'm still learning all the time when I sit down to broadcast soccer or hockey. But football is probably, I have the most confidence in my knowledge of the sport and the way it's supposed to be played. So it gives me a little bit more freedom to dive deeper into certain things. And I love watching games. I love watching footage and seeing what tendencies are for certain teams and going and being like, oh, this team, oh, you could see the Wildcat this week. They like to pull that out of the hat every now and again and kind of find out what teams keep in their utility belt, so to speak.
You brought up Shane Beebe, right?
Freebie, yeah.
Sorry, you brought up Shane Beebe a couple of times. That does the announcing at the dirt track with you. You've been working with him since 2018, so it's been a little bit of a while. But some of your other broadcast partners, it's kind of come and go with who you're working with. How long does it take to gel with specific announcers, and is there an advantage to working with somebody like Beebe, like you've worked with for 2 years now?
Well, Shane and I say this is the end of our third season at Lucas Oil Speedway, and it's been great. And I love going to the track because the relationship Shane and I have. When he and I are on the mic together, it's just fun. It's natural. We're friends. And it's hard to recreate that when it's not real. I've worked with Don West, who is a Missouri Sports Hall of Fame broadcaster now for the entirety of my 22 years in Springfield. And Don and I have known one another that entire time. It is easy. Don and I cannot do a game for a year, sit down, put headsets on, and it's just like we've done the last 10 weeks of games together. But I had an experience this last week where I, at the last minute, got pulled in to cover a game, Missouri State, Central Arkansas college football for KOZL here locally in Southwest Missouri, and then a couple of Nexstar stations in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Fayetteville, Arkansas, and got to work with a great guy named Wes Moore. I met Wes 2 hours before we went on the air. It is not easy to kind of generate a relationship that will seem genuine on the air in 2 hours. But I thought Wes and I did a pretty good job of that. The biggest thing about taking on a partner that you've never broadcasted with before is you just don't want to step on one another. And it's so easy to do. Let's take football for an example. It's a pretty good dissection of roles when you're calling a football game. Play-by-play announcer describes the action as it happens. When the action ends and a replay comes up, then all of a sudden the color analyst comes in and they're able to describe why things happen and what happened on the play. And then huddle breaks, go back to the play-by-play announcer, right? But based on your cadence, based on how you take breaths, if you're a big fan of William Shatner and the pregnant pause, and you just kind of stop randomly, it takes reps with a partner to know when those are going to happen. It's just like tag team wrestling. You've got to be able to know and anticipate what your partner is going to do or say or where they're going to take you. And it takes time, but you can put two really talented broadcasters together, and one night you may have a great show. If it's the first night they've worked together, everything may click, but you could have a train wreck on your hands too, of people just stepping on top of one another and talking over the top of one another and fighting for mic time because they just don't know when they're going to get to talk. Because that's what we all want to do when we put the headset on, is talk and be heard.
Corey, getting back to a little bit more of a fun question here. If you could broadcast or play-by-play any sport event in the world, which one would it be?
Ooh, anything. I could do anything. Well, it's very well. First things first, I'll tell you this: because I'm greedy, I wouldn't say like the Super Bowl, even though you can see what a fan I am of the Chiefs and their first Super Bowl in 50 years. It's only one game. So, first things first, I only want to call a series. I need like 7 games because I want the most opportunity to dive in and tell these incredible stories about these incredible athletes and coaches that I can get. But, you know, realistically, I'm probably not going to get a phone call to fill in for Joe Buck on the World Series or anything like that. But realistically, something that I think I could hopefully do down the road that would mean the world to me, as important as I said it was to get those opportunities to call Webb City football state championships, I would love to be able to go to Omaha and do the College World Series because the Missouri State Bears are in the College World Series. They have been there before. Keith Gutton is one of the most underrated coaches in college baseball, even though he is one of the 5 winningest coaches currently in the sport. He is incredible. He has been so generous with his time and his knowledge and his patience for me when I fill in for the regular voice of the Missouri State Bears, Art Haynes, to do pregame interviews with down on the field and make sure I don't take a foul ball in the back of the head. Coach G's taken really good care of me, and it would mean the world to see them in the College World Series and get to be a part of covering that up in Omaha.
Real quick, Corey, you mentioned series, and it made me think of the Olympics for some reason. When the Olympics come to the United States, there's so many different events. Is that something that you might try to line yourself up for? And I don't know when they're coming, but I think they're coming in the next couple of series for the Olympics.
Yeah, I think the Olympics are fascinating, and I am such a huge fan of so many different sports. I mean, obviously there's the Summer Olympics. A lot of focus will be on basketball as it has in the past, but like I remember growing up and watching beach volleyball on like Saturday mornings on ABC, and I loved outdoor beach volleyball. I think that would be amazing to be a part of covering something like that. And the versatility. I mean, I think that's what makes the great ones great. Whether it's Mike Tirico now or Bob Costas or Dan Patrick, all of that. Those broadcasters are able to cover a wide variety and topic of sports, which, by the way, leads me to this. God bless Doc Emmerich, the single greatest voice I have ever experienced in hockey or in any sport. If you made a Mount Rushmore, not of hockey announcers, of sports announcers, Doc Emmerich deserves a spot up there. I was crushed to hear that after 50 years, he was hanging up the headset this week. So much love to Doc Emmerich, and hockey is not going to be the same without him, whether in the Winter Olympics or during the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Corey, you've led us perfectly into this next question. So if you could broadcast a game with any other broadcaster, you instantly gel, you don't step on each other no matter what, who would that be?
Oh, wow. Okay. So when you get into broadcasting, or at least when I got into broadcasting, I made a ton of mistakes. I was young. I thought every play should sound like a Sports Center highlight. Thank goodness I had talented, more experienced broadcasters around me to steer me away from that insanity and try to quicken my maturation process. Because a lot of young broadcasters too, they try to sound like somebody, and you've got to find your own voice. But with that being said, if I could have mimicked, stolen anybody's voice, and this may be a little too far back for you guys, it would have been Keith Jackson. Keith Jackson was the first play-by-play voice on Monday Night Football, but he only made it the first season. But he was the voice of college football for my generation and a lot of them. He was folksy. He was down to earth. And I just thought the way he called the game, I'll throw it out every now and again. I'll throw out a "Whoa, Nelly," every now and again that's an homage to Keith Jackson. But if I could do anything, I would probably wish that I could call a college football game, a USC Texas Rose Bowl matchup with Keith Jackson. He is one of my all-time favorites.
That's an awesome answer. So you said you've gotten to call games for your high school alma mater, your college alma mater. Is it hard to hold back a bias when you're broadcasting for these teams that you have an affiliation with? I mean, obviously you love Missouri State, you love your high school. Like, is it hard to hold back that bias when calling their games?
Absolutely. It is not easy, but it gets easier with time. Being a professional, looking at things. The great thing about calling a high school game for like Misha.TV on Fox Sports Midwest, you know how you need to play it, which is you play it straight down the middle. You are going to make just as big a fuss if Jeff City Helias scores a touchdown as you are if the Webb City Cardinals score a touchdown. Now, there's a difference in calling, say, Missouri State, because a lot of times I get the opportunity to do that on the Missouri State Radio Network through Learfield IMG College. I can be a homer if I want to then. And there's a certain amount of enjoyment that comes with that. But as far as the high school stuff goes, I will tell you this much. I got the biggest kick out of watching my sister take up my defense a couple of years ago on a Class 4 state championship game on Misha.TV, because a few folks from Webb City went to social media and said how biased the play-by-play announcer was against the Cardinals. And they couldn't believe how one-sided the broadcast was. And my sister was like, you crazy people, he graduated from there in 93. He's not biased. He's just trying to be fair. So I appreciate it when my kid sister sticks up for me. And when people think I may be being too hard on them, that lets me know that I'm probably doing my job the right way, that I am trying to be fair and balanced. And we could use a lot more fair and balanced in the world we live in right now.
So before we started recording, we kind of started talking about some of the controversial hot mics that have been catching some sports announcers. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. One of them being Tom Brenneman. He was apologizing for a slur he said, and then he said, "Oh, there's a deep drive to left field by Castellanos. It's a home run, and it'll make it a 4-0 ball game." And then Troy Aikman just got caught talking about flyovers. So I'm just curious on your thoughts on the whole hot mic situation and what's going on with that.
Well, I don't know what's going on with it. I definitely can't explain it away. First things first, broadcasters are human beings. They all make mistakes. They all have their own opinions. They're entitled to their own opinions. That's part of what living here gives us the ability to do. With that being said, there are two major differences between the two examples you bring up. What Mr. Brenneman did was extremely hurtful to an entire group of people. That's hard to explain away. And I know he came back on the air, and I know he apologized for what he said. And we have a tendency in this country to give people second chances, and that's great. And I'm sure that after all of his years in broadcasting, that at some point in time, he'll get a second chance. But that one was live. It went out over the air. There was no taking it back. The one between Joe Buck and Troy Aikman confuses me because I don't feel like that went out over the air. I feel like that was a pregame segment that was recorded and then someone released. And boy, if you say something and you don't feel like you can trust your crew to protect you, take care of you, because that's what we all do. Being in sports, television, or radio, you play for one another the same way the athletes on the field do. We're a team. There's somebody on the field that's a kicker, and that's their job. On a TV crew, there's a couple of audio people. Taking care of the sound is their job. We all have certain job responsibilities and roles to fill. Bothers me because I feel like that one maybe was put out there to elicit a response, and I'm not sure why that is. And stuff can be taken out of context. So I like the work that Joe and Troy do, and Hopefully that one won't be taken as far to one side as it seems like it's going to be. But, I remember what I was taught the first time I sat down, which is headset goes on, that mic is hot, just assume it's hot all the time. If you're not willing to say it in front of your priest or in front of your mom and dad, don't say it in the microphone. So it's a pretty simple rule to live by, but I appreciate the people that I have worked with over the years for what I am sure is protecting me from saying multiple stupid things that I am glad that I have not had to explain away.
I appreciate you being open and honest about that. Those are some good insights for sure. I saw in the rundown that you gave us that your studio work was featured on ESPNU. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That guys, that was just right place, right time. I've been working with the folks that put together the Norm Stewart Classic, say for about the last 5 years, and it's been kind of a whirlwind. The first year I went up there, I worked pretty much every game. So it was like 16 games in a couple of days. And my throat was absolutely thrashed. I had no voice by the time it was done the first time I went. Then a couple years later, Denny Hunt and some of the folks up there got the idea that, hey, what if we do 48 straight hours of basketball? Maybe we could get some more exposure. And they did, because all of a sudden ESPN3 came in and went, holy cow, you're going to do high school basketball. There's going to be games at 2 a.m., 4 a.m., midnight. We'll cover it. And the folks at Niles Media and the folks with the Norm Stewart Classic got together. Now all of a sudden the 48 hours is on ESPN3, which is amazing. It's great exposure for these high school programs. And there are some big name high school programs that are in this field with D1 talent. And then there's some schools that would never get this sort of exposure because they're from class 1, class 2 markets and school districts that wouldn't get that sort of opportunity. So it's great for everybody. Well, then all of a sudden, it moves to Mizzou Arena a year ago. It had previously been at the Southwell Complex at Columbia College, which had been a gracious host for years. But finally, the Norm Stewart Classic moves to the Norm Stewart Court inside Mizzou Arena. Now ESPNU wants to get involved. And I kept begging and saying, please let me call the games. Please let me call the games. I promise I'll do a great job. Please let me call the games. No, we're gonna send in some pros. I mean, they brought in Damon Bethea to be the analyst. That dude was a stud at Michigan State back in the day. So I had no business being out there with those guys. But because it was ESPNU and they didn't want to break away from the event, they needed to fill. So they had about a half hour to fill in between the two games that they were doing. And they asked me if I would be willing to do some interviews and stuff kind of backstage off the court. And all of that was carried on ESPNU. It was a dream to get to spend, I think we went about 12, 13 minutes one-on-one between myself and the living legend, Norm Stewart. And that was just, well, one, it's one of the easiest interviews you'll ever do because it's Norm, basketball, go. And he just drops pearls. It's amazing. And he is just such an icon in the state and across the country. And I grew up in a household. I went to Missouri State for college, but I grew up a Tiger fan. I grew up freaking out every time the Band-Aid man, Darren Chivas, threw one down. Javon Crudup. That was all part of my upbringing, those great Norm Stewart teams. So of all the stuff I've done in my career, I bet getting to interview Norm Stewart is probably what makes my mom the most proud.
You led us right into basketball. Obviously, I'm a huge basketball fan, basketball family, and you've had the honor of calling a lot of basketball games. So I'm just interested to know what's the greatest, in your opinion, the greatest basketball game you've ever gotten to cover?
Oh wow! The greatest game would be hard to pin down, but I can pivot because that's a hot word in 2020. I can be fluent. I can pivot here and tell you I don't know. I saw a great game last year. I'll give you this one, and then I'll go another way. The Greenwood Blue and Gold tournament is one of the oldest high school basketball tournaments on this side of the Mississippi. It's going on 80 years now. here in Springfield. The Greenwood Lab School on Missouri State University's campus has hosted it this entire time, but they had never won their own tournament until last year. And they played one of the best perennial powers in the city, Kickapoo, which is Class 5, Class 6. Greenwood's Class 1, Class 2. And Greenwood just happens to have one of the top 10 high school basketball players in the country, an incredible young man named Aminu Muhammad, along with Tommy Pinniger and some great talent around Aminu. And they won their tournament for the first time in its long history. That was incredible to watch. I don't know. I don't have one of those incredible memories like a lot of broadcasters do. The details for me kind of fade away. A lot of my broadcasting is like cramming for an exam in college. I get all the information I need. I have it for the time I need it, and then I'm probably going to lose it the next day. I hold on to a little bit of it, though, the really good stuff. But for me, it's been 20 plus years of incredible basketball players. And I'll put this one right in your wheelhouse. I don't know that I've ever seen two more effortless, skilled basketball players than two that I have called state championships for, in Jason Tatum on the boys' side and Nafisa Collier on the girls' side. Nafisa was a joy to watch at Incarnate Word, and she made everything look so easy. And that's what the great ones do. I've always said it's almost a disservice. Great, especially great high school basketball players, almost look like they're dogging it because the game's already slowed down for them. They see the floor so well, and they just know where they're going to go with the ball. They know where the ball's going to end up. It's amazing to see a Tatum, a Collier, the joy of watching the group that we called the triplets at Columbia Rockbridge, and Isaiah Mosley and Jamonte Black and Jawan Harris, two of the three of which are now playing for Dana Ford here at Missouri State. Those were three guys that could run a weave and end with an alley-oop, and there was never a word said. It was just a wink, a nod, because they'd been playing together since they were kids. I've seen a lot of great basketball players in the last 20 years, and those are the ones that I remember. Those are the things I remember. Maybe not the games, maybe not the final scores, but just the feeling I have watching those players do something that I could never imagine doing at that skill level.
So you talked a little bit about Jason Tatum. Obviously, he was one of the best high school basketball players in Missouri State history. I personally remember him whooping up on CBC, where I went to high school, multiple times in my 4-year career there. And you talked a little bit about Dorial Green Beckham at Hillcrest High School, one of the most highly touted football and basketball recruits in Missouri State history. But it kind of leads me up to our next question. What was the best athlete that you've ever had the privilege to cover in a sports game?
Ooh, best athlete. See, there's so many different ways you can go with it. Is it purely the one sport, or is it the athlete that was like a state champion in football and basketball and baseball? I'll give you this one because it's top of mind right now. Earlier this week, I had the privilege of covering the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame's, which is located here in Springfield's annual Sports Enthusiast Football Luncheon. So they recognized a group called the Elite 11, and then they inducted the 1972 Missouri Southern football team. They were the first ever national champion in the sport of football. One of the players that was recognized, and I think greatness sometimes is all based on your perception at the time and maybe at that age. But the single most intimidating, dominating player I've ever seen on a football field was a guy that I went to high school with. His name was Mark Smith. Mark was an all-state linebacker and quarterback. And guys, this is the most important thing I can tell you about this man. Not only was he the cornerstone of what would end up being tied for the most football state championships in Missouri State history at 15 between Webb and Valley Catholic, but he's the only quarterback I've ever seen that could run the option where the defense prayed the quarterback pitched it. I mean, come on, guys. You guys are sports fans. If you're defending the option, you don't want the ball to go to the pitch man. You hope that you close on the quarterback fast enough that he keeps it, because it's the quarterback. He's not that hard to take down. He doesn't want to get hit. This guy destroyed people Friday night after Friday night for years. Never seen a quarterback that liked contact so much. Haven't seen a lot of quarterbacks that also played inside linebacker either. He went on and had an amazing career at Arkansas, got injured at Arkansas, which cost him, after going to the Kansas City Chiefs, probably an opportunity at what could have been an incredible career there as well. But I got a chance to grow up at the same time at Webb City, where Mark Smith was a class in front of me, and Grant Wistrom, who would go on to win a Super Bowl with the Rams, was a class behind me. And those two are probably the greatest, because they are two of the greatest people I have ever known. Mark Smith and Grant Wistrom are two of the most humble guys that you will ever meet. Don't want the spotlight, don't need the spotlight, would rather you talk about somebody else. And for somebody that does what I do for a living, that means I've got to talk about them that much more, because they will never self-promote themselves. But those were two guys that I had the opportunity to see every day in the hall, every day in the classroom, and just are two of the most dominant names, or should be two of the most dominant names ever in high school football in the state of Missouri. On top of that, incredible college careers and professional careers on top of that. But you could go so many ways. I mean, I'm amazed at how good Jason Tatum is in the NBA now. And it's not because everybody knew, we all knew he was going. It wasn't a question of if he was going, but I mean, he is just one of the best players in such a short amount of time. He is phenomenal. I honestly haven't been that big of an NBA fan since probably the late 90s. But when I find myself watching now, I know I'm looking for the Celtics, because I want to see what Tatum's going to do.
Michael's over there smirking because I'm probably the leader of the Jason Tatum fan club, and he's got a Giannis poster behind him, and I'm the leader of the Jason Tatum fan club. So we're at odds over here about our NBA opinions, but Jason's been phenomenal, so I'm glad you're on my side there on that one.
You're talking about athletes, Corey, and I'm just curious, did you cover or follow Missouri State basketball this past season, men's basketball?
Yes, I did. I would say I get the luxury of covering them in a couple of different ways, in the fact that I do a lot of the pregame, halftime, and postgame radio shows for Art Haynes on the men's side on the radio network. But then I also get opportunities on the play-by-play side to call some of their games on ESPN3 and ESPN+.
So I'm going to run this name by you. Obviously, you've probably heard of him. So he lived with me summer in between his junior and senior year. So this would have been 2019 to 2020. His name's Ross Owens. And Ross Owens is one of my favorite stories, just because, first of all, he's a great guy, great family, all of that. But he never played ever, like freshman through junior play. He was 13th man. And he talked about this new coaching, like nothing was ever played. And then they were struggling. They were really struggling last year, and they put him in. Yeah. And he was just a spark of energy. He went on to start for Missouri State and started on the team that beat Indiana State in the Arch Madness tournament before losing to Valpo, I believe. But do you have any insights into you covering Ross at all?
Oh, that was one of the best things to come out of the basketball season, man, because Ross was the end of the bench. You would even feel like there were times the injured guys had a seat closer to the coach than Ross. But what it is it's proof. Dana Ford is a good basketball coach. He has been under a lot of great basketball coaches, and I look forward to seeing how Dana is going to continue to grow and mold this Missouri State men's basketball program. But you're right. There came a time during the season last year that it was just, no, we're done. The 5 guys that work the hardest in practice are going to start the next game. I don't care how many consecutive starts you've had. I don't care how many points per game you average. The 5 guys that bust their butts in practice are going to be the starting 5 that get if you've ever seen a Missouri State game, the flame tower that they get to run out through and the spotlight intro and all that stuff. They're getting rewarded. Well, nobody outworked Ross. And what was great about Ross, the 3-pointers are what gets everybody's attention. But what always got my attention was the most tenacious defense I had seen on the floor all season. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that is riding the opponent's hip, stride for stride, just being a gnat, just being a pest all over whoever he was assigned to or whoever had the ball. And he would dive and leave knee marks up and down the floor. It could not have been a better story to cover, and it could not have been a better reward for not only Ross, but all of the other Rosses that there are that sit on the end of college benches night in and night out. And the same in high school, that eventually a coach will see the amount of work that you have put in and they will reward you for it. And he was really a bright spot in what was supposed to be a breakout year for Missouri State that really didn't turn out to be. I can tell you this much. I think I had one of his games on ESPN3. I don't know that it was the first start, but maybe it was the second. And he goes coffin corner three, no backboard, drains it. And I'm like, Ross Owens for three. Where did that come from? and that was kind of part of the deal. It was just amazing to see the success that he found when he was finally given an opportunity. And that's I think the story of Ross Owens is waiting for your opportunity and making the most of it.
All right, Corey, last question then. You mentioned that you use Keith Jackson saying "Whoa, Nelly" a couple times. Do you have any Corey Riggs sayings that you use a lot?
Well, going back to the conversation that we had a little bit earlier in the interview where I talked about the mistakes I made out of the gate trying to get into broadcasting and thinking everything needs to be this Chris Berman-esque Sports Center call that everybody will remember and people will make signs and So I tried to come up with a bunch of those. They all were epic failures. I tried to kind of work on a slam dunk call that was like 2 hands in the can. My fraternity brothers still give me grief for that call to this day. I'll just get a voicemail that's like, "Hey Riggs, it's Coco. Look forward to seeing you this weekend. 2 hands in the can," and they hang up. So most of my attempts at a signature call failed miserably. What I do most nights, and it's partially a way to entertain the fans and partially a way to entertain myself. I prefer to pay homage to others as opposed to myself. Uh, so many broadcasters will have a 3-point call that ends with a bang, and I'll work that in every now and again. I told you about my friend Don West and Matt Coatney, who's the women's play-by-play voice for Nebraska women's basketball. Don kind of started a call that Matt took to the next level that was a 3-point call back in the old Lady Bears days that was "You Betcha." And every now and again, as a tip of a cap to Matt Coatney and to Don, I'll drop a "You Betcha" in a game. I like to use "Holy Cow," as in Harry Carey's "Holy Cow." But if I give you the peek behind the curtain, I feel like I'm giving it away. But one, I like to use it in non-baseball games, because I feel like Harry was really one of the only ones to say it, and you only heard it in baseball. The other thing is I'll use it in football a lot when a play is so out of hand, I have no idea what else to say, where it's like running back fumbles the ball, defense jumps on it, ball squirts out, yada, yada, yada. Holy cow, what is going on? And just, you'll drop a "holy cow" in, or a "whoa, Nelly, we got to get a hold of the situation. But yeah, so many of my attempts at a signature call early on in my career were failures that I tend to just try to borrow a little bit from all the greats. I'm also a huge fan of alliteration. So if you hear me call a game, you'll hear a lot of that. It hit me one time early on in a high school basketball game at Parkview here in Springfield. Had a kid fouled on a made 3-pointer, and it just rolled off my tongue. The 4-point play is on the way for Double J Jermaine Johnson. And that sort of, again, to borrow from Vin Scully, that sort of poetic, sing-songy alliteration I like to weave in. I like to hit the same letter over and over again when doing Missouri State Lady Bears games. They have a young lady, Ellie Ruffridge, and Ellie is from Pocahontas, Iowa. And so when she hits a 3, It's Ellie Ruffridge for 3, and something along the lines of, it's a 3-point play for the pride of Pocahontas, Iowa. 3-point play, pride, Pocahontas, PPPPP. So stuff like that is kind of some of the stuff that I do probably on a regular basis. But to answer the question, yeah, there's yet to be a signature call. But great thing about being in broadcasting is if they let me do it as long as I want to, I'll still be doing it for another 22 years. And I got plenty of time to figure one out.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen this video, I'm gonna send it to you because this one is my favorite. It's pretty funny. We'll put the clip in the video when we release this episode. But it was this kid from Ball State, I believe, and he was doing. It had to have been his first time covering the Ball State athletics, and he just froze and couldn't say anybody's name or even anything. And then all of a sudden, the ball goes through the hoop,
And
he
boom goes the dynamite.
The Nets won the last Sunday's matchup 94-85, which left the Pacers one game behind the Chicago in the 7th series spot. Let's check out the highlights. Steven Jackson's David. Reggie Miller's looking good. He shoots a 3, and it's good. Later, he gets the rebound, passes it to the man, shoots it, and boom goes the dynamite. The final scores ended up with the Pacers 63 to the Nets 61.
Boom goes the dynamite, and it is the funniest clip ever. So we'll have to put that one in here. But oh man, play-by-play is definitely, you get some great stuff and you get some funny stuff as well. Well, Corey,
there's some clunkers out there for sure.
Yeah, Corey, really appreciate you coming on. We can catch you on ESPN Plus, ESPNU, ESPN3, MAV TV, Missouri State Athletics, Missouri High School Athletics. If I'm missing anything, go ahead and just keep filling them in. But I think I've covered most of them. We really appreciate you coming on.
No, it's my pleasure, guys. Appreciate you having me on, and love all the content that you guys are putting out. I love the World Series stat the other night. I immediately retweeted it because I love the good answer to a good trivia question.
Awesome. We appreciate you very much, Corey. Thanks for being on.
No, anytime.